Hi there, 7th graders. This is American History, Chapter 14, Section 2, Texas Independence. I will be reading aloud and elaborating on page 451 through 456. We set up the guide to reading. Main idea: large numbers of Americans settled in the Mexican territory of Texas. They eventually fought for and won independence from Mexico. We're going to learn in this section how conflict developed between Mexico and settlers in Texas, and how Texas won its independence from Mexico. Mexican cannons boomed outside of the Alamo's walls. Colonel William Travis put his face in his hands and tried to think. His co-commander, Jim Bowie, lay sick with pneumonia. His small force would not hold out for long. Travis picked up a quill pen and wrote a plea for help. To the people of Texas and all Americans in the world, I call on you in the name of liberty, of patriotism, and everything dear to the American character to come to our aid. Soon, people all over the U.S. learned about the desperate situation in the Alamo. The road to the Alamo started in the 1820s with the arrival of the first United States settlers in a Spanish-owned colony called Texas. Colonizing Texas. In 1820, Texas included a handful of Americans and about 3,000 Tejanos. Tejanos are people of Mexican heritage who consider Texas their home. Most of the region belonged to Native Americans, Comanche, Apache, and others, who fiercely resisted colonial settlement. Spanish officials believed they might lose control of Texas unless they lured more settlers to the territory. The first Texas empresarios. In the early 1800s, the Spaniards decided to offer large tracts of land to empresarios, people who agreed to recruit settlers. News of the offer caught the attention of Missouri businessman Moses Austin. In 1821, Austin convinced the Spanish government to give him a huge tract of land along the Brazos River. In exchange, Austin promised to bring 300 families to his colony. Moses Austin died before he could organize his colony. His son, Stephen F. Austin, carried out his plans. In 1821, he established the first settlements along the Brazos and Colorado rivers. About this same time, Mexico won its independence from Spain. Mexico soon issued new land grants to Austin and extended the boundaries of his colony. American colonists in Texas. The Mexican government granted each settler in Texas large tracts of land. In exchange, the colonists promised to become citizens of Mexico, obey Mexico's laws, and accept the Roman Catholic faith. Austin chose his first group of settlers carefully. He frowned on lying, using foul language, or drinking alcohol. He wanted only civilized and industrious settlers for his new colony. Austin issued land titles to almost 300 families. These hand-picked pioneers later became known as the Old 300. Although other empresarios founded other colonies, Austin's settlement proved to be the most successful. By 1831, about 5,665 people lived in his colony. Growing conflict. The Mexican government used its empresario system to ensure loyalty. Meanwhile, thousands of United States settlers moved into Texas without Mexico's permission. Unlike Austin's colonists, they never promised to uphold Mexican laws or accept the Roman Catholic faith. Instead, they wanted to keep their own culture or ways of living. Even the Old 300 had scattered clashes with the government. Colonists on the Brazos were using slaves to grow cotton in 1829, when the Mexican government prohibited slavery. The cotton growers protested so vigorously that the government decided to permit slavery in Texas, or at least temporarily. Slaveholders balked at the idea that the government might deprive them of their human property. Settlers from the United States also had quarrels with the form of government in Mexico. They wanted to have the same voice in government that they had enjoyed in the United States. Mexican officials, however, insisted on tight political control. Mexican fears. By 1830, more than 5 times as many Anglos, or United States settlers, lived in Texas as Tejanos. Manuel Mier y Terán, a Mexican general assigned to Texas, warned, "The North Americans have conquered whatever territory adjoins them. In less than a half a century, they have become masters of extensive colonies, which formerly belonged to Spain and France, and of territories from which have disappeared the former owners, the Indian tribes." Mexican officials heeded the warning. In 1830, the Mexican Congress banned further Anglo immigration. It also ordered construction of 5 new army posts in Texas to enforce Mexican laws. These actions brought furious protests from the Anglo settlers. Many people talked about defending their rights. A few even talked of splitting Texas off from the Mexican state to which it belonged. In 1833, Stephen F. Austin traveled to Mexico City with a petition. The petition listed reforms or improvements demanded by both Anglos and Tejanos. The reforms included repeal of the ban against immigration and creation of a separate Texas state. Okay, now I want to set this up before I continue reading, just to make sure you're clear. Texas at this time, now we know Texas today is a state in the United States. At this time, Texas is a territory of Mexico. Mexico is in control of this place. The problem, though, it is filled with people from the United States who have moved there. Mexico sees this as a problem. The fight for independence. Austin waited for months to present his petition to General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, the new head of the Mexican government. When they finally met, Santa Anna insisted that Texas remain a part of Mexico. Austin wrote a letter urging Texans to go ahead with statehood. When the letter fell into government hands, Santa Anna threw Austin in prison. Austin secured his release 8 months later. By this time, Santa Anna had suspended the Mexican Constitution and assumed the powers of a dictator. Many Texans believed the time had come to break away from Mexico. Come and take it. News of unrest in Texas reached Santa Anna. In October of 1835, he ordered soldiers to seize a cannon at the Texas town of Gonzales. When Mexican troops arrived, they faced dozens of Texas volunteers. Over the cannon, the Texans had defiantly hung a flag that read, "Come and take it." After a brief skirmish, the soldiers left without the cannon. Today, many Texans consider the fight at Gonzales the Lexington of Texas, or the first battle in the Texas War for Independence. Santa Anna did not intend to surrender Texas without a fight. He soon ordered Mexican troops to occupy the Texas town of San Antonio. In early December, hundreds of Texas volunteers attacked the city. After 5 days, they drove out the Mexicans. The Texas Revolution had begun. Defense of the Alamo. On March 2, 1836, Texans met at Washington on the Brazos. At this meeting, they announced the creation of the Republic of Texas. They placed Sam Houston, a former governor of Tennessee, in command of the army. Meanwhile, in San Antonio, less than 200 Texas soldiers took cover in and defended an empty mission called the Alamo. The defenders, both Anglos and Tejanos, included William Travis, Jim Bowie, and Davy Crockett. For 12 days, Santa Anna's forces shelled the mission. Defenders inside the Alamo held out against overwhelming odds. Finally, on March 6th, Santa Anna ordered an all-out attack. The first wave of Mexican soldiers faced the long rifles of Davy Crockett and his Tennessee sharpshooters. These riflemen picked off soldiers 200 yards away. For every Mexican soldier that fell, however, another moved forward. Mexican troops swarmed over the walls of the Alamo. The defenders fought on in furious hand-to-hand combat. A bullet killed Travis. Bowie died fighting from his sickbed. Mexican soldiers captured and executed Crockett. By 9 a.m., all the Alamo defenders had died. Only a handful of women, children, and slaves survived. The Goliad Massacre. The fight at the Alamo both angered and inspired Texans. To learn firsthand about the Alamo, Sam Houston met with Susanna Dickinson, one of the survivors in Gonzales. After hearing Dickinson's account of the final battle, Houston vowed to prevent other Alamos. He sent word to James Fannin, the commander in Goliad, to abandon the fort there. Fannin waited several days before obeying the order. When he finally led troops from the town, they ran into a Mexican army on the Texas prairie, and after a short fight, Fannin surrendered his force. A week later, the Mexicans began to execute the prisoners. Many escaped, including Fannin, but some 350 others fell before the Mexican firing squads. The battle at San Jacinto. News of the events at the Alamo and Goliad spread like wildfire among Texans. About 1,400 volunteers rushed to join Sam Houston, who did not strike immediately. He took time to build an army. He also stayed informed about the movements of the Mexican army with the help of 2 spies, Deaf Smith and Smith's African-American son-in-law, Hendrik Arnold. In April of 1836, Sam Houston decided to strike. He moved his troops onto the prairie just west of the San Jacinto River. On April 21st, the Mexican soldiers settled down for an afternoon siesta or nap. At that moment, Houston ordered the attack. Texas volunteers raced into battle screaming, "Remember the Alamo!" and "Remember Goliad!" Biography: Juan Seguin, a Texas hero. Juan Seguin grew up on his family's ranch along the San Antonio River. He disliked the arrogant Santa Anna. Like many Tejanos, Seguin believed Santa Anna would use an army to crush all opposition. Seguin became one of the first volunteers to join the Texas Revolution. He commanded a company of Tejanos in San Antonio. He and 8 members of his company fought at the Alamo. Seguin risked his life to slip through Mexican lines to find reinforcements. When he returned on March 6th, he saw the Alamo in flames. At the Battle of San Jacinto, Houston was not sure the Tejanos should participate. He feared Anglos might mistake them for the enemy. Seguin and his followers refused such protection, declaring they had joined the army and wanted to face the enemy. Houston admired the courage of Seguin and the Tejanos and changed his mind. The Battle of San Jacinto lasted only 18 minutes. It became the most intense battle of the Texas Revolution. More than 600 Mexican soldiers died. Hundreds were wounded or captured. Mexican soldiers shot 2 horses from under Houston before a musket ball finally shattered his ankle. When the battle ended, only 9 Texans had died. Santa Anna had disappeared during the fighting. The next day, Texas soldiers found him, hiding in tall grass, and took him prisoner. The Republic of Texas. The war had ended. On May 14th, Texans forced Santa Anna to sign a peace treaty. He also signed a secret treaty promising to support Texas independence. And in September of 1836, Texans elected Sam Houston president of the new independent nation, the Republic of Texas. Texas was a country. Thanks for listening.